morning, John. Thank you very much for your participation
Good morning,
in our
Giuliano.
Leadership Reimagined program. So we'll be talking a little bit about your personal background, your views on leadership, on diversity and inclusion, on sustainability, of course, quite important for our sector, and finally on talent attraction and retention.
I started out thinking I was going to become a chemist. So I trained as a chemist. I always wanted to be a chemist. Got a PhD in chemistry and then joined at that time what was BP, the chemistry department. And I thought at the beginning of my career I'd be in a lab, all my life. As my career developed, maybe getting to be a senior technologist at some point, in the future. But it didn't turn out that way. Opportunities arose in BP that took me into different areas, into technology licensing and commercial development roles. I got to move around quite a bit. Started my career in London, but then moved to the south of France to work in our big plant down there. Then went to Chicago and then back to the UK. So I found that my career developed in directions I never anticipated when I was young. And now I've been given a role which is to build a big chemical cracker in Europe. First big investment in petrochemicals in Europe in probably 20 years. And that's very exciting. Again, it's nothing to do with chemistry per se, but exciting to develop this project over the years to come. I'm never quite sure what I'm going to be doing next, but working for a large company like INEOS, opportunities keep arising, and it makes life very interesting. I do remember one leader that I had when I was in Chicago. I mentioned I spent 3 years in Chicago. David Robertson, I'll name him. He was my boss when 9/11 occurred, and in 9/11, when you were in the States, was a really traumatic experience. And I can remember the whole morning, the whole events unfolding. And what I liked about David was we had people in our team that were scattered around the United States, and immediately he got involved in talking to us about, okay, how do we make sure everyone is safe? We weren't sure what was going on. We had people in the west coast of the United States. We had people down in Texas. So it was, immediately trying to figure out how to render those people safe. And then very quickly it got into just the trauma of the situation. And I remember David was telling people, look, you might know friends of family members or others who were involved in the terrible incidents that occurred in New York. If you need to take some time off, take some time off, be with your family. I think that that would be what I would say is a role model for me when I take on these roles now, where I have people working underneath me. How do you make sure that they are mentally healthy, that they're enjoying their job and they're delivering both at the work and at the personal level?
What is the one leadership lesson that you've learned in your career that we can't find in books or MBA courses?
One of the lessons that I always try to teach those who work for me is you need to be very honest with people, especially in difficult times. I remember in particular, I had the opportunity of working at our large chemical site at Grangemouth in Scotland. And the site had gone through a very difficult period of time. The site was losing money. We didn't have feedstock. And the owners of our company made a deal, essentially, with the organization saying, we're going to freeze pay. We're not going to give out any bonuses. But in repayment for that, we're going to invest 250 million euros in the plant to render it profitable again. I remember when I first started that job, we had made that deal. I came in and people were quite sullen, I would say. They'd gone through a bit of a battering. Although the deal had been struck, there was a lot of tension. And I took great care in making sure that what I promised was delivered. And I spent a lot of time talking to people. You have a a site with that many people, you know, in different control rooms, etc., you spend a lot of time just talking to people, you know, in groups of 20 or 30 at a time. And I thought that the key element was that we developed a bit of trust between the employees and the management of the company. And so that was a lesson that I learned. You know, you do need to have honest conversations with people, even when those conversations can be difficult. One element that's changed over the last decade or so is, I think there is a need for modern leaders to be aware of the individuals in their team from a three-dimensional point of view. I mean, they're doing a job, they're getting paid to do a job, but they need to have a work-life balance which is proper and harmonious. They need to be healthy. It's a marathon, not a sprint, to have a long and fortunate career. And I think that leaders today need to spend more time looking at the three-dimensionality of their employees. How are they healthy? Are they happy? Are they enjoying what they're doing? Do they feel inspired? Are they feeling stretched, but in a good way? And not just worry about the 9-to-5 piece. I think the old days, 9-to-5 was kind of what a boss would worry about. But now I think it's more about making sure that the individual that works for you is really enjoying that opportunity to work and is thriving in that job, and not just surviving in that job.
In your view, what kind of corporate culture encourages women to aspire to leadership roles?
People need to feel they're rewarded for their performance. You know, if someone is doing a good job, someone's delivering against their targets, someone is enthusiastic about their role, and enthusiasm I think is very important, then they need to feel that they are rewarded for that. I very much believe that companies should be working on a meritocracy basis. In other words, if you do well and you do a good job, then you get rewarded by a promotion, or you get rewarded by a different facet of the job that you get to move into. That gives you that stimulus to continue to do well. And I think that, you know, the fact that whether you're a woman or a man in these roles, you know, you just need to feel that the company are looking at the performance that you're delivering and rewarding you accordingly. I think one of the challenges that we have in the petrochemical industry is a lack of women getting degrees in technical subjects and engineering and the sciences. We, as INEOS, spend quite a bit of time working with local schools in our different areas that we have our plants to try to encourage the students to think about the technical opportunities that would arise from a career in petrochemicals. One of the things we're doing is actually trying to educate the teachers. So, for example, at our site in Scotland, we would bring local teachers, you know, that would be teaching teenagers onto the site to show them what it is that we do, teach them about polymers and teach them about how we make polymers and how we use polymers, so that they can teach the students.
With Project One in Antwerp, we have a great opportunity to attract kind of talented women to our new plant that will have like hundreds of new jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. And Project One is a good example where we're desperate to hire people of diverse backgrounds. And we've done pretty well in terms of hiring people with different nationalities. We've got, I think, 15 or 16 different nationalities represented in our 120 people in the organization. But we're still struggling to hire women. And it's not for lack of trying. I mean, we've got, you know, 15% women in that group of 120 because they're not applying. And so, again, this comes back to we do need to encourage women in particular into the benefits that our industry can offer. And I think the women that are in our organization are great role models for those that are, you know, potentially come into our organization or into our industry in the future. I mean, sustainability is absolutely critical element, and it is going to be a marathon to develop truly sustainable technologies and circular economy elements. It's not possible for one part of our value chain, so everyone needs to be involved. So when we're making packaging, we need to be intelligent about how we make that packaging so that it is recyclable. We've gone the way of high tech. A lot of our packages these days have multiple layers, which make them almost impossible to recycle. You have to delaminate them. You have to work on the different elements of what is a complex piece of packaging. We need to find simpler ways of using petrochemicals, polymers in industry where they can be recycled, and treat the polymers that we're making, for example, as valued materials, not as something you simply throw away or, God forbid, throw into the sea. The consumer has to choose sustainable options, and when given the choice, you need to drive the whole value chain by picking those options which are more sustainable and all more recyclable than others. I think the problem that we face at the moment in our society is that if we're not careful, complex issues get boiled down to black and white. Right? Plastic is bad, plastic is good, CO2 is bad. We get to a very simplistic view of the world, and what we need is to encourage people to understand that, in petrochemicals in particular, it is a complex field in which we are working, and we need to come up with good decisions. So, when we're looking at new projects, we need to think about educating those in our neighborhoods and around our industry as to what we're trying to do and why. We need people to understand that the petrochemicals that we make fundamentally transform their lives in so many good ways. It's not just about packaging that gets thrown into the sea. It's all about how do we deliver sustainable opportunities for our modern world. And I think we're failing at educating people sufficiently. I think it goes back to the schooling I talked about earlier, but even to the adults around us, our communities. I spent a lot of time in Project One looking at how do we communicate to our stakeholders in Antwerp, where we're going to build this plant, so that the people down the street from our plant understand what we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it. And it's a big task. We can do it via media, but it also needs face-to-face interactions to make sure that people understand the benefits of what we're trying to invest in their own personal lives.